Thank you, thank you. I'm going to walk around a lot, so I'll try not to fall over the chairs. I'm a little rusty. It's been a couple years as well since I've done a keynote, so please forgive me. But I was thinking about, after looking at this intros, background slide that I saw yesterday, that what was really the theme of what I wanted to share today, and I think it's actually hope. That all of these things, whether you're talking about guest room technology, contactless payment, reservation systems, property management systems, different forms of payment, all of those things can be conquered. They're not that big a deal, but you have to have a plan to accomplish those things. And really, all of those elements on that sheet of paper back in 2015, we laid out a plan to address them all unilaterally based on a proprietary platform that I was going to build for Carnival Corporation. Now, Carnival, I'm trying to get a slide to go through. Carnival is a holder of many brands, one of which is Carnival Cruise Line, another of which is Princess Cruise Lines, which I happened to intercept the presidency of after I finished the implementation of the platform. But the point behind it is that when we established a vision back in 2015, we had leadership commitment, board commitment. We were very precisely clear with what we wanted to accomplish. And then we just started chopping wood and working. And it takes years. Transformation and mobilization and digitization and now movement into the metaverse is not for the faint of heart, and it's not easy. And it's not about just replacing your applications, it's about having a strategy. And so I'm going to share with you that journey today about how we thought about it, how we configured our frameworks of development, and then how we pursued it across the fleet, and then now that we're complete, what that sets us up for the future with the latest, coolest buzzword in the world, which is Metaverse, which I'll make some comments on a little bit later. But when we look, if you could go back to the slide, if you would, I think it's most important when you're delving in the space that we're in of technology, is it can't be about the technology. As soon as you start to talk about the technology, game is almost over. You have to understand the reason why. And from Carnival Corporation, and actually truly back in the Disney days as well, I had a strong belief that time is priceless and vacation time is even more priceless. And so if you can personalize a guest experience, not just call personalization a name on an email or a website, but if you can truly personalize the interaction between people, you raise the perceived value of their vacation. If you can eliminate the friction from a vacation experience, you can consume more experiences, so that increases the volume of experiences that any of your guests would have. And then if you can increase the rate, reduce the friction, and you can improve the overall experience, you'll get repeat visitation. And I call that connections. So if you have personalization, friction elimination, and connections, then what does every CFO in the world want? They want rate, volume, repeat. Isn't that what business we're in? And so when you talk about justifying technology investments, to me, the worst thing people in the technology space do is go into that discussion at all. You back up from that discussion, you talk with your CFO about what business we're in. We're in the experience business. And if you're in the experience business, you have to care how your experience is perceived, how easy it is to consume, and how often someone's going to consume it. And that's what the basis behind what I think any technology project that you guys would put forth to your leadership to pursue. So that's what we did, and the board of Carnival Corporation bought it, our CEO supported it, and then we went on from there. That was about the end of our justification. When you really think about game changers these days, everything's a game changer this, game changer that. But if you abstract, I look and I say there's just been a few major game changers in the last few decades. And if you think about the personal computer, I think Windows was a massive game changer. And the reason is the prior slide. Because what did it do? It allowed you to personalize the interface, and it eliminated the friction to interacting with an 886 computer, which we all, not all, some of us, maybe half of us in this room, maybe half of this room actually understood what a C prompt was. But at that point in time, that was massive because it was personalized to me. That desktop was set up to me, and I know every time I went to use it, I could increase the utilitarianism of that computer because it was frictionless. So that was massive. So fast forward up to the iOS and the mobile device, and And Apple, in 2010-ish time frame, you can get distracted by how beautiful the phone is, and you can talk about the apps. But what it did is it made the interaction with the mobile device more personalized, because you set up the interface, and eliminated the friction. Because some of us remember those devices in that corner when you were dealing with the Nokia at the time or the BlackBerry at the time. It was crazy to think about switching for those. But as soon as someone made it more personalized and simplified, all of a sudden the world changes. So we wanted to look at those same common denominators as it related to figuring out how people interacted with cruise ships, which are actually a microcosm of the world, because when you go on a cruise ship, whether it's 7 days, 30 days, 110 days, it's supporting every aspect of your life and every component of your experience. And so it allowed us to do like a microcosm of what if you change the way people interacted with the physical space and humans in that space persistently across every aspect of their experience, 24/7, whenever they are engaged with us. And we call that the ocean platform, because when you look at the physical world, it's still a very complicated place. It's less complicated than it was, but it's still complicated. We still have our phone. I still have my wallet. I still have my cards. I still have the keys. I still have fobs. I still have all of those things that allows me to interact with the world on a minute-by-minute, hour-by-hour, daily basis. But when you go onto one of our ships or with the Princess brand and you're participating in our Medallion class experience, all of that is suspended. The only thing you have to have is your ocean medallion, and the rest takes care of itself. You can use a mobile device if you choose to enhance your experience, or you can use portals, public portals, which are also interactive and aware of you, or your stateroom TV, which is also interactive and aware of you, or interact with any human or service provider on the ship, because they're simply another mobile device. They're connected into the same platform. So it makes the connectivity of the guests ubiquitous. So that's what we intended to do back in 2015, and I'm going to explain how we actually did it. So the first thing we said was, back to the analogy, is that all a cruise ship is a 160,000-ton mobile device. And when you think about it, it is actually all it is. It's a 160,000-ton mobile device. And we were going to wrap that mobile device with an operating system, just like Apple wraps this mobile device with iOS. And then every single guest experience that exists on that ship, in that floating connected smart city, is simply an application on that floating mobile device. Not a mobile app, but the notion, the metaphor of everything sits on a ubiquitous platform. And that is completely counterculture to anything that has ever been done in hospitality, because we know that whether we're talking about Vegas or whether we're talking about Disney or whether we're talking about cruise ships, they're all verticalized, is what I call it. They're all silos, because they're all aggregations of lines of business. So whether you're talking about hotels, restaurants, entertainment, casinos, recreation, spas, transportation, there's systems for all those things that I'm going to talk about, but none of them are built ubiquitously around the guest on a horizontal versus a vertical platform. So that was the goal. And we said, if we could do that, and then if we could understand, this is a big leap, if we could understand where every person on that smart city was in space and time, in real time, every 200, 300 milliseconds, then we can have personalization at scale and basically deliver, yacht level, most elite level service to broader audiences, which in the Princess brand was, big ship cruising. Because if you think about cruise ships started way back in the early 70s, late 60s, and it was a personalized experience. They were small, there was a lot of crew, the ratios were there, and you delivered a personalization. But as cruise ships grew, because of the economies of scale and profitability, you were manufacturing value through scale, but then naturally your experience degrades, and you get lines, you get hassles, you get complications, and you get frustration. So we said, wait a second, if we could take a large cruise ship scale, thousands and thousands of people, and we could deliver that service that would be elite concierge service to every single individual, then that's a game changer. And that's ultimately what we did. So I have a short video that will explain a little bit more.
Time brings innovation, making tomorrow profoundly different from today. With each giant swing comes the next evolution, building new models, making old ones obsolete. We are now witnessing the next apex in this evolution, merging the physical and digital worlds to create an entirely new realm for engagement. A realm defined by continuous engagement, omni-participation, infused commerce, immersive content, all fundamentally enabled by persistent connectivity. Only one revolutionary platform is orchestrating this intersection. Ocean, the world's first Experience IoT platform. Driven by billions of data points in real time, keeps consumers persistently at the center of your brand story. A wearable device activates the Invisible X IoT platform, empowering personalized experiences, frictionless access, fluid commerce, health and safety monitoring, and amplified customer service anywhere in the world, in any dimension, at any time. Created by the Global Experience and Innovation team within the Carnival Corporation, the Ocean platform is deployable across legacy systems, seamlessly integrating the old with the new. Universally modular and configurable to enable any experience application. Location data powers an intelligent matrix that augments operations and supercharges experiences. The digital dimension is virtualized with experience intelligence, invisibly layered across every physical environment. Team member service delivery is continuously informed to exceed the needs, wants, and desires of every consumer with no hassles or frustration. The more your consumers engage, the richer their experiences become, created and crafted just for them. The next technology-driven experience apex is here. The Ocean platform drives a new plane of consumer interaction for the world's leading brands. Connecting people, to brands, to experiences, to a new dimension never imagined. Welcome to the future. Welcome to Ocean.
So the good news is it's not for sale. It's proprietary for Carnival, and it's currently on Princess, and I'm running Princess, so it's great. But I wanted to describe what is actually in the platform and what makes it so unique. And then I'm going to share a little bit of the challenges that I know that you face, and then I'll tie that back in how we layer this thing and implemented it. But ultimately, everything is based on individual identity. And that individual identity is a guest, it's a crew member. Because if you're a soul on board, you have a validated identity, and then that identity is connected to the entire ecosystem via a universal device, and there's nothing anyone can do to mess up the device. So learned that at Disney World, actually. So it can waterproof, saltproof, sunproof, heatproof, kid-proof, jump up and down dashboards on Florida proof, because if you're going to enable an entire ecosystem to run in real time, it has to be incredibly industrialized and durable, and you can't have any inconsistency in this ecosystem, which is amazing that you can do on the scale of a ship. We have sensors that we actually embed. This is the IoT aspects of it. We have sensors that we embed in the ship, and on a typical ship, I was supposed to have 4,000, but then it was 7,000. Then I think the last I heard, we probably had about 8,000 sensors on each ship. Combine that with another 4,000 access points, that's 12,000 basically devices. Throw on that another 2,000, 2,500 TVs. So now we're up to 14,500. Throw on 2,000 crew devices, you're up to 16.5. Throw on 3,000 crew devices, then you're up to around 18, 19, and then there's a bunch more. And so we're up to 20,000 plus connected devices on a single ship, on a single ecosystem, all running through our proprietary sensor IoT network. We then broke up the concept of applications. We don't have applications, and that's where the hospitality industry is such a victim to the verticalization, and as I mentioned, the applications that tie to those verticals. And so we have a portfolio around 200 microservices, and those microservices can be basically, as I like to think about it, like a chef. We can mix them up to create any experience we want at any time, dynamically and in real time, and I'll show you how we do that. Then had to build some specialized devices on the edge, such as the device you're actually seeing on this slide, which is a door portal. So when you're walking down the hall to go to your stateroom, the door will recognize you, automatically open, provide you your access, celebrate your birthday, and also has a bunch of hidden aspects that basically give the housekeeper signals to the status of the room, whether it needs to be cleaned, whether someone's in it. You never on one of our doors hear someone bothering you, tap, tap, tap on the door. Are you in there? There's no disruption, because if there's people in the room, you'll never be disrupted. And the housekeepers, all their staterooms are resequenced dynamically in cleaning based on the proximity of the people and whether they're on or off the ship and embarkation and things like that. So it does a bunch of stuff. And then once you have all this real-time intelligence, and I don't even know how much we have, it's like billions of data points a day. Well, then you can start to render reality. And as soon as you can render reality, then you have the 3D spatial world that everyone's talking about these days as we progress through the metaverse. So those are the components of the platform. Here's where most of the world is unfortunately stuck. Most of the world is stuck with POSs, ticket management systems, casino management systems, table management systems, property management systems. And it's not that the systems are not great, it's the fact that they're not built around the guest. And so each one of those systems has another version of your guest in there that somehow is doing transaction and then somehow moved to databases of which somehow are reconciled through CRM processes and methods, of which we then convince ourselves that we're delivering a personalized experience. Well, how can you deliver a personalized experience if you're reconciling identities offline in databases and then supposedly giving personalized experience? It's not possible. Personalized experiences are great till you screw them up. And because then it's a really bad experience. And so you have to be good. You can't fool yourself on this situation. And the reason I have the guests walking across the top is in the real world that you guys are living in, the guests, every time they go into a new vertical or interact with a new element of the experience, they're basically having to learn how to interact. That's burden on the guest. You don't want to put burden on the guest. You want to take burden off the guest. And so what we did with our platform is I started with the guest, the concept of everything is an attribute of a guest, period. Simple as that. Everything's an attribute of a guest. It's not like a guest is an attribute of a room, or a guest is an attribute of a table, or a guest is an attribute of some other reservation. No, a guest is a guest. A crew member is a crew member. And they may have rooms, they may have entitlements, they may have tables associated with them, they can have anything associated with them. It doesn't really matter. So that's on the top. And then on the bottom, the development of this proprietary IoT that we built, which was this embedded sensor network and just a tremendous amount of effort that goes into that then we infused in all physical locations. And so that makes the entire environment of any space on the cruise ship that you're involved, including our ports and some of our islands, by the way. We actually have beaches that have the IoTs all built in behind the trees. And so it allows you to be fully connected, have all that intelligence in real time. But the key here that I like to point out on this particular slide is that certain experiences are universal. It doesn't matter what brand you're with. It doesn't matter whether you're the Ritz, it doesn't matter whether you're Princess, it doesn't matter whether you're Holiday Inn Express. At the end of the day, you have to pay. Well, you need access. You have to be validated. You need access. You need connectivity. You have to pay, and you need to be safe. That's the core essence that's kind of like the universal experiences that people will encounter when they're engaging with your brand. From that, we build around whether it's media, itinerary, navigation, services, gaming. So it doesn't matter whether you're operating a casino, it doesn't matter operating theme parks, cruise ships, or hotel, I bet you those are the same experiences. And then as opposed to having all of, the reason this is platformatized, is then we developed this so the brand could just trade out, almost like one of those selector visions back from the 70s, is that if you abstract brand from technology, you can get so much more leverage out of the core essence of the experiences. And when you think about brands, kind of big brands like, Marriott is a holder of many brands, or MGM is a holder of many brands, Carnival Corporation is a holder of many brands. This is how you get leverage. Don't let the brand, even though I run a brand, don't let a brand convince you that the technology is different because the brand's different from that brand. They are not. The creative presentation of that experience is different. The style of delivery is different, but the technology that underlies it is not. And that's what we proved here. And we said that it's not only not agnostic to brand, but even to the style of the experience. Whether it's a dining room or a medical facility or an entertainment venue, it's the same thing. It's an individual that needs access. Are they entitled? And what was the payment associated with that? Simple as that. And so if you can abstract, you can get a lot more leverage in your creativity. And I'm going to explain how we now install this in these big floating cities. Well, they're big ships that become floating smart cities once we put our platform in them. Today marks a really great intersection because the Medallion-class ship will be moving out of dry dock. As impressive as this is, with 7,000 sensors, 4,000 displays, the 75 to 100 miles of cable, that sounds all great, but that's really the hardware component. The magic is also in the software, and so this allows the teams actually to get back out of the field, get back home, get to the XIC, and drive software to the finish line.
This is obviously the main thing that is happening on this dry dock is the installation of the infrastructure for the new Ocean Medallion program. Really, I think it's going to be a game changer for the whole cruise industry. There's been nothing like it to date, and it really is going to revolutionize the passenger experience.
The digital suite that we've created consists of every sort of aspect of what you would expect to exist in the smartest cities in the world. It's daunting and challenging for our team to think of what it means to convert from a ship that really knows nothing and really sees nothing to a ship that is capable of delivering personal experience to a guest at a macro level.
Our platform can span any ship of any vintage, but it can also span our islands, our beaches, our resorts, our lodges, motor coaches, trains. So wherever the guests are, they can have that personalized and simplified vacation. The video is a few years old now, I think, like 2017-ish. Had a lot less wrinkles. Those ships are pretty intimidating when you first walked up to them, but once you lick one, it's only 14 more to go. And so what we actually, when you think about, I was talking a lot about technology and brands, and I wanted to make this point, which is what we intended to do is not ever change the DNA of a brand through advanced technology. The notion was to make sure you understand what differentiates that brand and then how your platform allows that to be amped up or magnified. Because that's when I think a lot of projects get in trouble when corporations try to pursue different transformations, when they forget what business they're in. None of us are in the technology business. My goal is to make technology invisible. We're in the guest experience business. People want to experience the experience. They don't want to experience technology. If you ask them, do they want technology? Of course, but they don't want technology for technology. They want technology to make sure you enable the experience. The analogy that I used for years within our corporation was, look, we're like Mercedes-AMG. The Mercedes is our brand, Princess is our brand. AMG, Advanced Motor Group, was there to magnify the differentiators of the Mercedes brand to create more value for the consumer. And that's exactly what we ended up doing with the Princess Medallion Class experience. And I held that analogy true through our entire development, and it helped keep people centered on what we were really there to do, which was amplify the brand differentiation so the guests would value it at a higher level. And it's kind of fun to do the impossible, which this, I think, turned out to be. What we ended up with, once we had our vision, we had our mission, we had our architecture, we had our framework, we had the concept of the IoT embedded in all the ships. And then what happens when you drop on that portfolio of 200 microservices built around the guest experience? What it gave us was identity verification of anyone, anytime, in space, between any two people for anything. So it doesn't really matter. And so that could be a gangway, that could be security, that could be medical center, that could be access to a theater, that could be casino. OTT and mobile streaming, where we're streaming content to your stateroom TV, your mobile device, anywhere in the world, on a mobile device. Think about that. Streaming media content through satellites to a mobile device, on a mobile device. And then, by the way, if you pause your media on your mobile device at sea and actually had downloaded our OTT app on your Apple TV at home and pull it up, unpause, without logging in, you're done. Same point. And so that was the universality of using the identity as the key. On-demand services, anytime, any place service. Now, this is being done a lot in the world. I'm very impressed with all the different ways that people do it. We did it a fairly extreme way, which is anything you want, any place, anytime, anywhere, on the ship, and if you move between the time you order and the time it's delivered, it moves with you. So if I order here and I go back to the back of the room and then change my mind, let me give a real scenario. I get on the ship, I go to a stateroom, I go out in the balcony. I'm like, man, I'm gonna order a burger and fries. So I order a burger and fries. And then I'm like, man, I hear music on the Lido deck. Man, I gotta wait 15 minutes. I think that's kind of cool. Now I'm as a guest, I'm stressed. I'm like, okay, I'm giving up experiential time. All right, I'm gonna leave that behind. I go up, Lido deck, sit by the pool, burger shows up. That's the fidelity of the anytime, anyplace service we have. Itinerary planning, find friends, wayfinding. On a ship, this was a really, really big deal. And in a resort like this, it's a really big deal. Time is priceless. And so people would get lost on cruise ships. And if you take a right versus a left because you think you're on starboard and you're on port, you've walked 15 minutes. And then so think about that. I walked 15 minutes. I'm a little tired, frustrated. Now I had to walk 15 minutes back before walking the other. That's could be 30 to 45 minutes that I messed up because I had my directions wrong. And so we wanted to make sure that was never the case. And so, by the way, finding individuals is no different from a burger finding you because it's all about the relationship of identities in space. Mobile wager, interactive gaming, touchless payments. I'm not sure if that's up there. Contactless payments. I wanted to make a point of that. I love our contactless payments because it's been a quest, but it's actually contactless payment. The contactless payment term cracks me up. Everyone's in the contactless payments, which aren't contactless. It's kind of crazy. I mean, they're almost contactless. I guess they're like a couple of millimeters. But this is payment at distance. This means, you want something, you're done. Because me as a service provider, a crew member, I can see the guest, they're picking up a piece of merchandise or they want a drink or whatever, pick up and go. It's validated, two-factor authentication. I have your security profile, real time with that crew member. You have your medallion, two-factor authentication, all secure, all safe, no hassle to the guest. And that's really a payment experience that is second to none in the world. Super excited about that. And then, because of the way we did these, is they're abstracted across any surface. So a mobile device is just a piece of glass. A public portal is just a piece of glass. A stateroom TV is just a piece of glass. The crew member's mobile device is just a piece of glass. But if all of those pieces of glass are aware of you in real time, then that same service can be delivered to you in real time across any metaphor. And so when you're dealing with, especially technology people, they get into this and they think people want this or people want that. Guess what? People want it all. Some people want this and some people want that. And if you're running a big connected city, you need to please everyone. So we needed to be what is currently in literature obviously called omnichannel. We needed to be seriously omnichannel. Our age group of our consumers ranges between kids and 95 years old or older. And so we needed to make sure that we could interact with any way they choose. And like they say in medicine, at first do no harm. Never convince yourself that you can take something away until you prove that you've created a superior experience that the guests themselves go to. You can't push guests to go do something that's not better. They'll reject it. And you can't actually push cast members, crew members, employees, teammates to convince a guest that something's better if it's not better, which is another rule that I use in development, which is at first make the crew's experience better, make the team members' experience better, make the cast members' experience better. If you make their experience better, they're gonna tell the consumer to like it because it made their life easier. So often in digital transformation projects, there's a trade-off. You'll get in your budget like, well, we don't need to do that or we need to do this. But the problem is they cost what they cost. You just have to make sure you lay out the strategy and get your fundamentals right. So this is on the guest side. On the crew side, they operate on the exact same platform. They wear the exact same device. They have the exact same profile, but the enablement via the services are different because they're doing roles. Their role is in housekeeping, or they're interacting with guests, or they're conducting the commerce transaction. They're participating in food and beverage or health or security, but it's exactly the same because humans are humans, identities are identities, services are services. And so by going horizontal and keeping uniformity and not compromising at all on that, it worked out well. And so it allows the guest and the crew to simultaneously engage in an ecosystem which is accretive to them all. Every time the crew engages, they're winning. Every time the guest is engaging, they're winning. So it's a mutual win fest. So I have another video. I'll tell you a little bit more about what the experience that results from all of this is.
Well, when the team brought to me the fact that Carnival approached us with a really interesting proposal, I honestly was like, you're kidding. We don't want to jump the shark here. We are a show that's focused on technology. The keynote stage at CES is one of the most important business platforms in the world. And they said, no, you got to hear this. So I trust my staff, and I listened, and I saw, and it dawned on me that this could be the first smart city in the world. And there's a vision of technology with a very highly qualified team, which had made a difference. And the more I listened, the more I learned, the more convinced I became. I still felt there was a risk because it was so outside our comfort zone, honestly, in moving out there. But our job is to take some risks. And this is one risk I'm glad I took, because honestly, the keynote, the presence at CES, the phenomenal reaction of the 7,000 media from around the world that attended, as well as 180,000 people coming from around the world, innovation, technology-focused people. This is great. This is not something we considered. And Carnival launched and presented. Then honestly, there was a quiet period. And honestly, we forgot about it, went on with our lives. Fast forward, November, less than a year later, it launches. We've had some great companies announce major things at our stage that move markets and change the world, like Netflix and NVIDIA. But this is the very first time that we've actually followed up with a company to see it implemented out in the field. Oh, look at that, it has my name on it. It's awesome. I just toured the boat today, and the ship is incredible. Carnival has not only exceeded expectations, they've literally wowed every audience that has experienced this whole concept. It's not a piece of technology, it's a vision of the future.
Because she showed an interest in fitness, now we want to reward that by showing healthier options.
This is the holy grail of loyalty marketing.
Yeah. You guys are at the forefront of very exciting work. What's dramatically changed for a lot of us living near cities is the transportation experience. With Uber and Lyft, you have a frictionless, high-quality experience where there's tremendous feedback, tremendous information both ways. This is taking this and putting it on steroids in a sense to the cruise experience, where you're getting a tremendous amount of friction out of the experience.
Welcome.
Oh my gosh, look at this.
No, you don't have to hold it
Oh,
up.
I don't. I can just go in. Oh, wow. This is a wearable. It's not like a mobile device which you have to find out where your phone. If you're going to the pool, you may not want to bring with you. This is something you could wear all the time. It's comfortable, it's relaxing, and it's no fumbling involved. It's a hands-free experience 24 hours a day. It will allow you seamlessly to just go into your room. It allows you to order food and drinks quickly when you want them, and they'll come to you. And also, it'll allow you to give options to customers that they didn't even know they wanted, but they will love to be provided. Well, that's so cool. Look at that.
Watch the lights come on.
That's awesome. Look how cool that is. You know, if you want a well-tailored suit, you provide a little information to your tailor about your measurements. This seamlessly does that in a way which is real time. It's not saying what you think it is. Your actual behavior is sending messages all the time about what you like, what the aggregate of passengers like when they go to a cruise, where they spend time, what they do. This is a phenomenal amount of information which will allow cruise ships to be continuously improved and every customer to feel like a VIP. When you're giving up your precious time and money to invest in a vacation where you want to be refreshed and revigorated, challenged, and have fun, it's like grease on all the wheels. Not only has every promise made been kept, but there's like hundreds of others, the new things that came out of it. Expectations are phenomenally exceeded. I'm personally very impressed. I think it's great that Carnival did this. They're clearly leaders. To me, it's a great answer that I hope goes way beyond the cruise industry to a lot of other aspects of life.
Gary's a great guy, tough guy too. And so when he does that off the cuff like that, you're like, wow, it's not too bad. You know, it turned out okay. But I think the biggest thing about the CES thing was talk about pressure. Tell the world you're going to do something, and you haven't even got the stuff installed on one ship, and you have about 12 months to get it done. And so that became a massive drive, which was great because it galvanized the team to deliver what we presented. Now we're going to shift gears a little bit and kind of just talk for a few minutes about, because I want a few minutes left for questions, about this, movement into the metaverse. That was the title of this particular keynote, and so we're here at the end, and all of a sudden the metaverse has become the hottest word that no one knew what it meant, or people still don't know really what it means in the last 2 to 3 months. And I'm going to talk about kind of how something that I've been pursuing, not the metaverse itself, but the concepts over the last couple decades, is that it was in 2001. If you ever want to read The Experience Economy, very simple read. Joe Pine's a good friend of ours, and I had to interact with him on working on some Disney strategy, and that became the basis of what turned out to be the Magic Band, which was democratize elite service by taking friction out, because Disney was so big and so complicated, so many transactions. And literally, before the Magic Band, you would have to pull out your pocket, and you would have like 14 pieces of media, because you had hotel cards, you had fast pass keys, you had transportation vouchers, you had meal coupons, and it was just really, really hard. And so that was the notion behind the Magic Band. It wasn't to create a wearable, it was to eliminate friction by having a unified way to interact with the entire destination. That was the basis of the Magic Band. So that was on the friction side. But then it was with the medallion that we moved forward to really build the IoT to allow all of this to happen in real time. Magic Band was a transaction enabler. The medallion doesn't really interact with transaction because it's one big matrix all the time. You exist in the matrix on the ship all the time. So it's not about transactions, it's about persistent connectivity. And it's that persistent connectivity that drives the intelligence, that drives the interactions. And so really what we're doing is we're democratizing that elite service that I mentioned earlier, driven by this real-time intelligence, this I like to say that experiences should be just like going to your grandmother's house. Anything you need, want, and desire just kind of happens with no complication. That's ultimately what we were trying to achieve. And if you have perfect intelligence, I think you can have a perfect experience. So in essence, a lot of the things, or almost everything I showed you today, is really an intelligence project masquerading as a guest experience project, because it's the intelligence that drives the added value to the guest experience. And then the next level is really, if you think about down on the x-axis there, it was about moving from mass experiences to personalized experiences. But if you think about it, all that was done in the concept of single dimension. But now, what I'm looking at is multidimensional, digital physical fusion, cross-dimensional interaction, all in real time. And that's what I think the metaverse is. I think that these other folks think metaverses are game environments that have increased physical brand placement in, or maybe the metaverse means like a new word for VR, since we know that VR doesn't do all that much to the greater, the bigger world of guest experiences. Or maybe to some other people, it means, that you're replaced with an avatar on a Teams call. None of those things to me are the metaverse. To me, a metaverse is a mirror world. It is where you're engaging in the physical world, and then simultaneously you're engaging in the digital world, and you're doing that with all the guests, you're doing that across all team members, you're doing that with all the services that exist, whether it's food, beverage, retail, casino, et cetera, and all of that is adding value. And that's what we're really focused on going forward. So maybe in a few years, we'll come back and explain what we're doing in this particular space. But we're very strategically advantaged because of the space-time awareness of everyone in the ecosystem. And it's something that you don't know till you get there. We set out to establish a platform to transform and raise value to the guest experience. And so now, once we're at this higher elevation, we can see a little bit further than we could see before. And I think that I would encourage everyone here to think about their projects the same way. You think you know where you're headed. You really don't. You have that vision, get leadership commitment, deliver that vision, be resilient, be determined, be dedicated. Don't vary off your vision, because your vision's probably right, because it just gets politicized over time and everyone has agenda. Establish that mission. And then once you achieve it, you'll see what's next. And you'll see it with some great visibility and great clarity. So that's what I will leave you with today, is that it is all possible. It takes time, but focus on establishing that vision, enlist that leadership support, put great people around it, and get to work. All right, thank you, and I'll take some questions from anybody on any topic, if any. Or you can have 8 minutes back. We got a question. Got it.
Hello? Hi. Okay, quick question. The phone app platform, is it something that you put on the guest phone, or is it also available for an iOS watch? I wasn't very clear on that.
So we have something called the Medallion Class app, which is you just download it to your mobile device, whether it's iOS or Android. And that is there as a optional interface to use as you see fit. But again, you could use, if you're someone that doesn't want, because there's some cruise folks that don't want to use their mobile device, believe it or not. And if that's fine, talk to a crew member or go to a public portal or go to your stateroom TV. We haven't deployed to a watch. We don't use a watch in our ecosystem yet. Could, but we really not been that big of a driver. Yeah, Vicky will work with you on that. Yeah. Most of them are out there on YouTube, to be honest with you, because people say, well, why do you share all this? And it's like, because it's hard. Good luck. It's all good.
A question. What's the user acceptance of this technology? You've got baby boomers. How have they come to accept this technology? Have you found resistance, or you have a ready-made uptake of the technology?
Two answers to that is, before COVID, it was 99.7, and post-COVID, it's 100. Because Actually, we had to require that last 0.3 because we use it for real-time contact tracing for COVID situations. And so it is 100. But if you back up, the way I see it is if you add value to your experience, guests will immediately adopt. If you make the team members' experience better, they will easily change. If you get yourself caught in a conference room and you have a bunch of HR people there and they're talking about change management, and you need to hire a change management consulting firm to come in and explain how we're going to convince the people to change, then you should quit right there, because you can't convince people to change. You just have to make their existence easier. And whether that is for the guest or that is for the team member, cast member, or crew member, that's all the change management you need. So if you do your job right, it'll take care of itself.
Hey, Rolf with GoTab. You mentioned back 2001, thinking about where the world would go, right? Almost 20 years ago now. Doing your best Elon Musk. Where does this all go? Because it's intense. So what are we all mind control, or what's happening?
Just a couple thoughts, and I'm certainly not Elon Musk. Is that I think that there is no limit to the level of information people will share and the level of connectivity that people want, as long as you pay that off. But if you're not paying that off with the experience, there is a limit to that. And it goes back to the previous question as it related to user acceptance, is that if you add value, people change immediately. There's no resistance whatsoever. And so everything that we talked about today with the level of connectivity, the level of awareness, the level of intelligence, I think it just keeps going and going, as long as we can continue to pay that off. And when you start to think about the slide I showed at the very end, where guests can simultaneously exist in the physical space and digital space, adding value cross-dimensionally, I think that's where we're going. I'm not a believer in any device saves or changes the world, because at the end of the day, it's also humans interacting to consume experiences. And when there is a device, you're not going to change how the whole world goes to a single device. It doesn't really work like that. So I think that we are going to increasingly focus on experience. I think people are going to demand higher value from the brands that they let in their life, because time is precious. It's a very noisy world out there, and I don't want to hear from brands that are distracting or complicating my life. I want to engage with brands, whether they're travel brands or whether they're other leisure brands, or it doesn't even matter. Just any branded experience better add value to me, or I want it gone. And if it adds value to me, I trust it, I'm going to stay connected to it, and I want it to serve me.
So my question is, this is impressive technology. It seems very expensive when you guys invested in this. How are you guys measuring your return on investment on the technology? Are guests spending more?
There he goes. I got to see the guy that called it expensive. It's all relative. So if you think about a cruise ship is $1 billion investment, and it's going to exist for between 25 and 30 years. The investment that it takes to make it perfectly intelligent is less than 1% of that investment. So it sounds pretty cheap to me. But if you look at it on an absolute dollar basis, it's not cheap. It's a sizable investment that it took to do that, which is why it took, in this case, it took an enterprise the size of a Carnival Corporation to put that much capital investment in and provide the necessary time to cultivate something like this. And it takes a lot of commitment. But I think it's all relative. And when people get one of the biggest barriers people like is it's expensive. Fortunately, I grew up in finance and business planning at Disney, and I learned that everything was relative. So all I want to do is figure out what you're talking about, look at the other aspects of the business, talk about the value that you're adding, make it relative to the other aspects of the business, how it adds value to the consumer, how it reduces your cost or creates efficiency, not how much does this IT project cost versus that IT project. That's just fodder, you know.
So with this amount of innovation in connectivity, devices, things like that, it made me think about the amount of cybersecurity that's needed or privacy, and I wondered, what type of innovation did you use to approach those new concerns?
Well, I think it's what you know is now somewhat commonly known as security by design, privacy by design. We fortunately did not take that lightly from the beginning, because if you're going to base your entire brand, your entire fleet, your entire value proposition on a connected experience, that connected experience around an identity of an individual and deliver personal information, you have to take that very seriously. So we know in the industries that we represent and participate, sometimes it's a have to do, and sometimes you think about it from the very beginning. And I would just encourage people, it is a fundamental, you must consider it fundamentally from the beginning and then include it throughout your development process. Now, it's not a zero risk world, and I hear that term around a lot these days too. I'm like, but what does that mean? If there's zero risk, there's zero value. So, I think that your security professionals on your project teams are very much like your attorneys. They're there to advise you. You're there to make decisions based on the relative risk, and you need to make sure it's fundamentally considered. That would be my answer. All right. Well, I think we just hit 000, so I think we're all good. So thank you for having me. I really appreciate it, and I hope to come back in the next couple of years. Come cruise on Princess Cruises. I'd love you to experience the Medallion Class experience.